You're watching from the forest edge as long ships beach on the shore below. You can't run. The chapel bells have already stopped ringing. It's the year 793. On this island off the northeastern coast of Britain, 23 women have lived their entire adult lives in prayer. They've never seen violence. Most have never even left these grounds. They're about to experience both. If you believe that the documented accounts of history's most brutal moments must be remembered, consider liking this video and subscribing. Your support helps uncover the stories they tried to erase. The monastery of St. Hilda sits on a windswept cliff above the North Sea. It's been here for 128 years. The stone walls are thick, built by craftsmen who died before these women were born. Sister Aylesworth is 19 years old. She's been here since she was 7. This morning, she was copying manuscripts in the scriptorium. Her fingers were stained with oak gall ink. She was working on the Gospel of Matthew. Now, she's on her knees in the chapel, praying. Around her, 22 other women do the same. The youngest is 14. The oldest is 67. They can hear the screaming from the village below. The abbess, Mother Edburg, is 54 years old. She's been leading this community for 23 years. She's watched these women grow from girls into scholars, artists, healers. She knows what's coming. The historical record for this comes from multiple sources. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle documents the raid on Lindisfarne in 793, with specific details. The Annals of Ulster record similar attacks. Archaeological evidence from excavation sites across Britain and Ireland shows patterns of destruction dating to this exact period. But there's another source, one that survived by accident. In 1847, during renovation of a church in Northumbria, workers discovered a sealed chamber beneath the altar. Inside were fragments of parchment, water-damaged but partially legible. It was a journal, written in Latin, dated to 793. The handwriting analysis suggests it was written by multiple people over a period of weeks. The content describes what happened to the women of St. Hilda's monastery after the Vikings arrived. Here's what it tells us. The Vikings beach their ships at mid-morning. There are 4 longships, approximately 120 men. They're not here for gold. This monastery has no treasure, no jeweled reliquaries, no silver chalices. They're here because someone told them about the women. Think about what this means. Viking raids weren't random. They were strategic, intelligence-based. Someone from the mainland told them exactly where to find an isolated community of defenseless women. The raiders reach the monastery gates by noon. Mother Edburg makes a decision. She orders the gates opened. Picture this. Your sister Aylesworth, 19 years old, watching your abbess walk out to meet the men who've just burned the village below. You can smell the smoke. You can hear crying from somewhere beyond the walls. The abbess speaks to them in Latin, then in the local Saxon dialect. They don't respond. One of them, taller than the others, with gray in his beard, looks past her, looks directly at the women standing in the courtyard. He smiles. The journal fragment describes what happens next in clinical detail. The Vikings separate the women into 3 groups. The elderly 7 women over age 50 are taken to the storage building. The young girls, 3 novices between 14 and 16, are taken to the abbess's quarters. The remaining 13 women ages 17 to 35 are left in the chapel. This division isn't random, it's calculated. Think about the psychology of this. The elderly women are isolated but kept alive. They can hear everything happening to the younger women. The young girls are separated completely, creating maximum terror for the women in the middle group, who can imagine but not confirm what's happening to children they've raised. The middle group, healthy adult women, are kept in the most central location where everyone can hear them. This is systematic psychological warfare. The journal fragment becomes harder to read here. The handwriting changes. It's shaky. There are crossed out sections. Water damage obscures entire passages. But what remains is specific. Sister Aylesworth writes, "They did not kill us. This was worse. They wanted us to remain conscious, to remember." Here's what makes this especially sinister. Vikings were experts at psychological warfare. They understood that creating trauma survivors was more effective than creating corpses. A dead nun becomes a martyr. A traumatized nun who lives to tell the story becomes a warning. The archaeological evidence supports this. Excavations at raided monastery sites show evidence of prolonged occupation, not quick strikes. The Vikings stayed for days, sometimes weeks, sometimes. At St. Hilda's they stayed for 16 days. The journal tracks the progression. Day 1, the separation, the establishment of control. The raiders sleep in the refectory. They eat the monastery's food stores. They drink the communion wine. Day 2, Sister Margaret, age 24, is brought to the refectory. The other women can hear her screaming. It lasts for hours. When she's returned to the chapel, Sister Aylesworth writes, her eyes were open, but she was not seeing. She would not speak. Blood on her habit. Day 3, they take Sister Hild, age 31. Then Sister Cuthberg, age 22. The pattern is deliberate. 1 woman per day. Never 2. Never random selection. Always in order of age, starting with the oldest in the middle group. This creates unbearable psychological pressure on the younger women. They know exactly when their turn is coming. They have days to think about it. Think about that. You're 17 years old. You've spent 10 years in this monastery learning to read Latin, studying theology, copying manuscripts. Your entire world is prayer and scholarship. Now you're watching your sisters taken one by one. You know exactly how many days until it's your turn. Sister Aylesworth was number 7 in the sequence. She had 6 days to wait. The journal entries during this period are fragmentary, but certain details emerge. The elderly women in the storage building are forced to continue their work. They're weaving, preparing food, maintaining the monastery's functions, as if nothing is happening. But they can hear everything. The young nun novices in the abbess's quarters. The journal never explicitly states what happened to them, but there are references to crying that never stopped, and the small voices. Mother Edberg, the abbess, is kept with the middle group in the chapel. She's not touched. She's forced to watch. This is deliberate. The leader must witness the destruction of everyone she was supposed to protect. It's not enough to kill her authority, they're making her watch as her failure unfolds in systematic detail. Day 7 arrives. Sister Aylesworth writes, "They came for me at dawn. I had not slept. I had prayed until my knees bled on the stone floor. God did not answer." The entry ends there. The next entry is dated 2 days later. The handwriting is different. Messiah, I am still alive. I do not understand why. Sister Quen says this is God's will. I told her, God is not here. Here's what the archaeological evidence shows. When researchers excavated the St. Hilda's site in 1934, they found evidence of systematic violence. But they also found something else. In the chapel, carved into the stone floor, barely visible unless you know where to look, 13 names. The names match the women in the middle group. Each name has a number next to it, 1 through 13. The last name is Sister Aylesworth, number 7. This means she was there for at least 6 days after her ordeal. Long enough to carve her name into stone. Long enough to know she was going to die here. The journal continues sporadically. The dates become confused. The handwriting deteriorates, but certain facts emerge. By day 12, all 13 women in the middle group have been cycled through the refectory. The elderly women in the storage building are still alive, still working. The young novices are silent now, no more crying. On day 14, something changes. Journal entry is brief. They brought us together, all 23, first time since the separation. We could see each other. Sister Aylesworth describes the reunion. The elderly women looked decades older. The young novices wouldn't make eye contact with anyone. The women in the middle group, the journal describes them as walking dead. Mother Edberg tried to pray. No one joined her. Here's what should terrify you about this moment. The Vikings didn't need to kill them anymore. They'd already destroyed them. The community that had existed for 128 years, built on faith and sisterhood, was psychologically annihilated. You can murder a body in seconds, but destroying a soul that takes weeks of calculated cruelty. The Vikings left on day 15. They didn't burn the monastery. They took some food supplies, a few books. They left the women alive, all 23 of them. The journal ends on day 16. The final entry, in what's identified as Mother Edberg's handwriting. We have decided. We cannot live as we were. We cannot speak of what happened. The world will not understand. God has abandoned us, or we have abandoned God. I do not know which is worse. We will end this tonight, together, as we began, in prayer. Archaeological evidence from the site shows that the chapel burned on a night in early autumn, 793. The fire was intense, concentrated in one location. It consumed everything. When excavators sifted through the ash in 1934, they found fragments of human bone. Analysis suggested approximately 20-25 individuals, all female, all showing signs of dying in the same location, likely huddled together. They also found one other thing, a piece of partially burned parchment. The last page of the journal. On it, in charcoal, someone had written, "Forgive us. Here's what haunts me about this story. The Vikings didn't destroy St. Hilda's by killing 23 women. They destroyed it by making those women destroy themselves." The historical record barely mentions this raid. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle notes disturbances in Northumbria in 793. That's it. No names, no details. The monastery was never rebuilt. The land was abandoned for 200 years. When the church was finally constructed on the site in the 11th century, the builders sealed the chapel ruins beneath the foundation. They didn't excavate. They didn't remove the remains. They buried it. For 1100 years, the story stayed buried, until workers accidentally broke through a sealed chamber in 1847 and found fragments of a journal that shouldn't have survived. Think about what this tells us about historical memory. How many stories like this are still buried? How many sealed chambers remain undiscovered? How many journals were completely destroyed instead of partially preserved? The women of St. Hilda's didn't get a heroic martyrdom. They didn't die defending their faith with inspiring final words. They died traumatized and broken, questioning everything they'd believed, taking their own lives because continuing to live was unbearable. That's not the story we tell about medieval saints. It's too complicated, too dark, too human. But it's documented. It's real. It happened. Sister Aylesworth was 19 years old. She'd spent 12 years studying scripture. She could read Latin, Greek, and Saxon. She'd copied the Gospel of Matthew by hand. She'd never harmed anyone. She died believing God had abandoned her. The Vikings who did this were never punished. Most probably died decades later in their beds, surrounded by family, honored as warriors. The monastery that had stood for 128 years, that had preserved knowledge through the darkest period of British history, was erased in 16 days. The historical record moved on. But in 1934, when archaeologists found those 13 names carved into the chapel floor, they also found something else. Beneath Sister Aylesworth's name, carved in smaller letters, a final message. We were here. We were real. Remember us. If this exposed history you never learned in school, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We're going to keep uncovering the stories they tried to erase. Drop a comment with your thoughts about how we memorialize historical trauma. I'll see you in the next investigation. The women of St. Hilda's don't have elaborate tombs. They don't have statues or feast days. The church built on their remains doesn't mention them by name. But their names are still there, carved into stone beneath centuries of construction. Sister Aylesworth, number 7. She wanted to be remembered. This is me remembering.